Ninja Black, it's a shame, no love for Chris Gaines. He was original, individual, and more than a little special. One of a kind, stays on the mind of Ninja Black. Let's talk that smack, break down the tracks and facts with Ninja Black. Ninja Black.
Yo, what up, YouTube land? Welcome to another special episode of Ninja Black Talk Some Shit. And today we're here to talk shit about the one and only misunderstood human enigma that is Chris Gaines. Now, this is out of the ordinary from my normal style. Normally I like to talk about some R&B soul music, but you know what? He does got some R&B soul cuts going on, so I'm gonna count it. This isn't a caveat episode. I feel like we're on brand, actually. And also, in the future, expect me to continue talking shit about music, especially about music I like, and I'm gonna make a little special treat for music that I don't like in a little bit shorter form type of situation. Anyways, we do a lot of talking and a lot of shitting and a lot of shit talking about shit. But today is very serious. It's a very important dilemma, a mystery that I'm hoping to clear up for you. There's a lot of speculation and gossip and stuff on the internet. There's also a lot of helpful information that actually breaks down the truth and the facts without treating the whole situation like a joke in a game, which definitely is not. Chris Gaines, if you don't know, is not the alter ego of Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is, in fact, one of the most successful American musicians of all time. Even if you're not a country fan, a country guy, which I'm definitely not. If you're over 30 years old, you probably heard of Garth Brooks. He's got more number one hits, at least in the country charts, than probably anybody around. And he was at the top of his A game. Everything that is today is like modern country music, like country that's like slash pop, like everything from Taylor Swift to any other one that you can name, because that's the only one I could think of. All basic like modern day Nashville sound pretty much can thank Garth Brooks for kicking in the door on main pop culture. Now, I grew up in a pretty white town in the 90s, and so Garth Brooks was probably a lot bigger for me than he was in different areas of different neighborhoods, I'm sure. I never seen him in concert or anything, but I always heard it's pretty amazing, and a lot of people really dig him, and he's a very interesting guy. And what's really interesting about what we're talking shit about here today was that in 1999, at the peak of his powers, he was going to transition to become a movie star. And that is the very first point that we need to get clear about who Chris Gaines is because there's a lot of confusion. And I'm going to clear it up today. So, Garth Brooks, number one dude, like killing the game. His greatest hits album right here has over 30 tracks on it, and most of them are like legit greatest hits. Like, normally you come out with the greatest hits album, there's like a couple on there that you're like, I probably wouldn't have put it on there. But these are like legit hits. It even has like 3 or 4 brand new songs that were made just for the greatest hits. Which, by the way, that's a fresh trend that we need to bring back. I know greatest hits ain't really a thing anymore. It's just like YouTube or Spotify playlists and compilations and whatever. But that was always fresh. I appreciated back in the day when you go buy the greatest hits and it's like, cool, I just don't have to have his whole discography on deck now from now on, or make my own custom mixtape. Instead, I can get the greatest hits all in one package. That's wonderful. And as that special incentive to buy the greatest hits, even if you have every other record, is they would always put 1 or 2 or 3 new songs that you couldn't get anywhere else. That's pretty fresh for that. This one I got for $2 at the Goodwill. It was supposed to come with the 3rd disc with the DVD with all the videos, and that would have been way fresher, but for $2 it didn't come with that, but whatever. But anyways, Garth Brooks, as the king of country, was getting ready to become a movie star. And he actually turned down a couple of roles. He was supposed to be one of the main stars in the movie Twister, which is one of my wife's favorite movies of all time. It's not too bad. And he didn't want to be outshined by the special effects tornado, so he turned it down, because he wanted to be the top billed listed star. Also, he was supposed to star alongside Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan. How crazy would that be? But, again, he turned it down because he didn't want to sacrifice top billing credits to Tom Hanks. Damn. Now that lets you know right there what somebody thinks about themselves, is if they don't want to star in a movie with somebody only because they have a risk of being outshined. Now, he had earned his ego for sure. But instead, he wanted to make a movie where it was all about him. And so, the idea is birthed of Chris Gaines. Now, there's a small backstory that I'm going to get to for sure, but mostly I want to talk about who Chris Gaines really is, where the misconception about Chris Gaines comes from, and try to settle the score and the rumors once for all and just get to what it actually is about, which in this case is about the music. Now, Garth Brooks got together with Babyface, who's a super famous, awesome producer, mostly for R&B music, and a bunch of other label guys and movie studio guys, and they all got together and came up with an idea for a movie. And this movie was supposed to be called The Lamb, and it was about this guy named Chris Gaines. He's like Garth Brooks level famous, Michael Jackson, Elvis, whatever, name it, the highest super performance superstar of all time. And how the movie is about, at the very beginning of the movie, he dies. I think it's supposed to be that he's murdered by like a super fan, whatever. And then throughout the point of the movie is trying to figure out the mystery of who he was that led him into getting into this trouble and solving the mystery of whodunit kind of scenario. And so, in the movie, it's about Chris Gaines, obviously, but who is Chris Gaines? Who is this guy that's supposed to be the most famous, successful super rock star of all time in this fictional universe? Well, Garth Brooks was so excited and so amped up to be the star of this movie that he took it upon himself to invest tons of his own money and get all these awesome people together to try to flesh out like a media world, like an extended universe of everything about who this guy is. And the point isn't just that he's being overzealous and excited about the role. The point of it in his mind also is supposed to be about that the fans be able to know exactly who this guy is and be understanding and investing in the character of Chris Gaines before they get to see this movie. And so that way they can buy the idea that he is the superstar guy and not just have to have like a narrator or like a big long text scroll at the beginning of the movie to like set you up for just having to believe who this guy is. And he went a little overboard for sure. But one common misconception is that he was trying to do this like split personality thing. Like, all right, Garth Brooks is the king of the world, the top #1 guy ever. And then he just one day woke up and lost his mind and donned this whole new persona and tried to put out this album as this no-name, super totally different, opposite, not connected person, and put out this album with a different style of music and just expected everybody not to know it was him and just buy it. And he just had some like personality disassociation and everybody was like, what? Who? But that's not what happened. A lot of people try to make it a joke and they say, you remember that time Garth Brooks lost his mind and had a multiple personality disorder? Oh yeah, do you remember that time when Garth Brooks tried to like trick everybody into thinking that he was like actually a different guy? No, it's not like that at all. It's not even like where like Stephen King would write books as a different name and trying to see if people liked his books just for his writing versus just like his name having the clout to automatically sell X amount of copies. That's not even what was going on. I was already saying he's trying to build up the backstory of a fictional character to get you hyped as like pre-hype for the movie. Just like so many movies that have ever came out have these big marketing campaigns where, like, say for example Deadpool, and he like goes into KFC and he comes in and he says, oh, KFC's my favorite food ever, and KFC's like all on board, hey, come eat at KFC because it's Deadpool's favorite food ever, so you could come get a Deadpool cup or whatever. And it's like Deadpool is a fictional character that KFC is taking advantage of a promotional opportunity to put it out into the world before the movie comes out to build the hype. It's just like that, but to like times 100, the most. So what I mean by the most is that Chris Gaines actually got his own episode of the OG documentary type of biography show called VH1's Behind the Music. They even got the narrator and the editor and the graphics guy. It was like everything but in name, because actually they didn't call it Behind the Music. They called it something slightly different, just to like make it not like an official. They didn't want to participate in like going full blown on a fictional character, I guess. But it's like an hour-long biography episode, and it's pretty over the top. Like, he really has in his mind who this character is, and it's like the most epic, like cliched stereotype rock star dude of all time. He's like a sex addict and all this like crazy background story, and it's just a little bit too much. And maybe not in 1999, maybe because with so much camp and satire and meta stuff that we have nowadays, we look back at it and it seems so ridiculous. But in 1999, 25 years ago, it might not have seemed that outrageous, like, because of just the newness of the internet and just the culture at that time. But then Garth Brooks never once for a second ever pretended that he wasn't Chris Gaines. There are several videos of him on the internet where he says, hi, I'm playing a character named Chris Gaines, and he's going to be in a movie called The Lamb, and I get to play that character, and it's really cool. So here's a first look, everybody, at what Chris Gaines looks like.
This is what he looks like. Yeah, I think that's a damn good-looking man right there, huh?
And here's a taste, everybody, of what Chris Gaines sounds like. And Chris Gaines, he is like this, and that's a character that I'm playing, a fictional character. Hope you like it, everybody. And so that, to me, right there already, like, just feels maybe it's suppressed information that people want to believe that he just snapped and lost his mind, when actually it was very clear from the very beginning. And in fact, before the album came out, he came out with the single, and it says Garth Brooks as. And even on the other on the real album that came out, if you like want the alternative album cover, it says Garth Brooks in the life of Chris Gaines, when the actual album is called just Chris Gaines' Greatest Hits. But you can alternatively keep it yourself and reminded that it's Garth Brooks. Because Garth Brooks being one of the biggest selling guys of all time, you still definitely want to, like, he's the movie star of the movie. He's not trying to trick you into thinking, Ryan Reynolds is not trying to trick you into thinking that he's actually Deadpool in real life. Like, nobody's thinking that. And so I don't know why he gets such the reputation for people acting like they think that that was going on. It's definitely quite the image shift for Garth Brooks to go from the goateed chubby cowboy guy to the super emo soul patch skinny makeup wearing guy. That's definitely a huge departure from what his fans would have been expecting. And Chris Gaines probably would have been a cool extra character as the main star, rather, of the movie The Lamb. But the thing is that the movie never came out. And so since the movie never came out and Garth Brooks never became this big movie star he was trying to promote himself as, that maybe is what added fuel to the fire of people thinking that he just lost his mind and tried to he's trying to break away from country. He doesn't appreciate his fans and where he came from. He's trying to sell out and go mainstream and blah 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 blah. Maybe that's because the movie never came out that people get it twisted. Don't get it twisted, because not only is Garth the man, and the more I've learned about him, the more I've respected about him and his work ethic and his talent just as a singer, as a guitar player, as a performer, and how much he really actually goes out of his way to show love for his fans and the kind of work that he does. I don't know if it's still the case because he's doing Vegas residencies and stuff, but when he used to do his arena tours, which by the way, he's one of the biggest selling concert people of all time. He always does back to back sold out shows and puts on a hell of a show. From the footage I've seen and from every single person who's ever been to one of his shows, I've never heard anything other than, wow, what an amazing show. And again, so I don't know if he still does this, but it was a big reputation that he had, that he would make front row tickets cost the same as the nosebleeds tickets. It would just be whoever was on it at the most, right? And even he's been known for a lot where there's nosebleed seats way up there that people are full of, and then say middle seats that are empty. He would send security teams and whatever to go personally escort people to get a better seat if the seats were empty. And that's pretty cool, man. I think that he seems like a genuine, good old home down Oklahoma boy who's a Boy Scout, cowboy, just authentic, real America, sweetheart, good boy. Like the John Cena of country music. And I love that for him, and that's great. But he tried to do something else, and he was relatively successful. But to the people that gave him his success, they weren't going to buy it, and his career actually has never been the same since. So with the release of the greatest hits of Chris Gaines, it was met with pretty good reviews and pretty good sales. Not as good as he's used to. Garth Brooks would normally send anywhere between 10 and 15 million copies every time he would drop an album since 1989, which is pretty impressive. This one only went double platinum. That's 2 million copies. That, to me, is still pretty impressive, just not the kind of Garth Brooks numbers that the record label was hoping for. Especially with, I'm sure, how much money they dumped into this thing, and the whole Chris Gaines project in general. But because this whole album, which we'll get to in a minute, is made, written, produced, and everything by only top-notch level A1 lister musician guys. And, you can hear it in the quality and the mix and the production of each song. Whether or not each song is a good song is something that we'll get into, but they're all very well done, and that is for sure. And he was taking this thing absolutely dead serious. This was supposed to be the launch of his movie career, and at the same time be able to prove the haters that he's not just a one-trick pony. Even so, with a lot of his hits that he had as a country guy, there's a fair amount of range in there, because he does the slow ballads, he does the heartbreak songs, the happy songs, the honky-tonk songs, the drunk songs, the wedding songs, the arena rock songs. He's definitely got a lot of influence from arena rock and super over-the-top pop music in his country. He's from Oklahoma, moved to Nashville to try to make it. That failed. Moved back again, and finally got a chance to blow up and do something. Like I said, where I grew up, I probably heard him a little bit more than other people might. And there is a few songs that I have a soft spot for, or songs that just I know I remember hearing more than a few times that kind of just stuck with me, that I always will hear it and be like, oh yeah, Garth Brooks, yeah, that's pretty alright actually. And there's a handful of songs on his greatest hits here. Ain't going down till the sun comes up. And everybody should know, if you don't, you should, that I got friends in old places. But so, with that song as an example, I really feel like Garth Brooks is actually just as much of a character as Chris Gaines is. Because Garth is actually his middle name. He's Troyal Garth Brooks, which that's a pretty fresh first name. But I feel like Garth Brooks is just as much of a persona, because Garth Brooks, he don't talk with like a southern cowboy accent when he's introducing himself at the party. But he sings like that, and he sings like cowboys, Louis Hampton. He's the stereotype for a country singer. But he doesn't talk like that. And as more further proof, in this album, there's none of that. There's a couple songs on here that sound like they're definitely just Garth Brooks songs without the twang, but we'll get to that. But he really was able to like get outside the box and flex his chops on this, and because of maybe the misunderstanding of it or the failure of it or whatever, that he got really like dragged through the mud over this and was really like depressed and frustrated by it bombing. And right after he put out this in '99, he came out with a Christmas album and then basically a retirement album. He retired from music for almost 15 years to focus on his kids, which is great. But actually, right at the same time this was coming out, he ended up going through a divorce. And that sucks, obviously. And then he's been with Carrie Underwood basically ever since then, for all your country music TMZers out there. But what's interesting about that, too, is that she ended up writing one of the songs on this for him. Garth Brooks is well known for him being the one who writes his own songs. Especially there's a great SNL when he was the guest where he's trying to write a song and ends up with the devil. Will Ferrell's the devil, and that's a pretty fun skit. And speaking of SNL, he did an SNL as the guest star as Garth Brooks, but as the musical guest as Chris Gaines. And that's interesting to say the least. I don't think he was necessarily announcing that, hey, I'm playing this character Chris Gaines. It's just that Chris Gaines got the opportunity to be the musical guest with no extra special introduction other than Tracy Morgan talking mad shit about how Chris Gaines is gay and this and that and whatever, blah, 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 and just like trashing him right to Garth Brooks' face. And it's supposed to be this funny skit, but it just makes you hate Tracy Morgan and feel bad for Garth Brooks. So it's a weird skit, and you can find it on YouTube, and it's just kind of like mean-spirited and ugly. But anyways, Garth Brooks got plenty of money to get some therapy and get over that one.
Very cool. Musical guest tonight, or the musical guest tonight, very lame. Hey, if you got kids gonna see Garth, send them to bed. Trust me, it'll do you a favor. All right, stick around. We're gonna have fun. It's Saturday Night Live!
This album really marked kind of a dark time of transition for Garth. Like I said, which I don't know if he fully recovered from. He's talked about it at length before, talking about how his fans, like, took him a long time for his fans to forgive him. It took him a long time to quit hearing about the negative hate about it. And then, lo and behold, it only took 20 years, but hey, better late than never, that this album has actually got like quite a cult following. And, you know, some people might be loving it for like the campiness or the cringe of it. But I happen to believe that this is some quality music, again, which we'll get into. But in 2019, they had in Nashville, Tennessee, Gaines Fest, which was appreciation of Chris Gaines night, where there's Chris Gaines lookalike contest, Chris Gaines cover bands and contests, competitions, and all sorts of fun and games for the whole drunk family. And then I believe they had the 25th one this year as well, in September. And man, I would love to be a part of something like that, because I'm actually a bigger fan of Chris Gaines than I am of Garth Brooks. But being such a fan of Chris Gaines and how, like, such out on a limb, the balls it took to, like, go full ham, all the way, super hot, full blast on Chris Gaines, also is what makes me more of a Garth Brooks fan. To not only see his range and what he's capable of, but how committed to the bit, how committed to the art, how committed to just whatever his idea was. He believed in it, and he sat down everybody and he said, let's go, let's do this 100%. Get all the greatest musicians we can find, put them all together in one room, and let's make this movie the hypest it could ever possibly be. And that's super admirable, because a lot of the best and most important parts of an album and in a movie is the pre-production, having everything lined up to make it as fresh as he can, and he did his best, and I think it shows. So it's interesting that the movie never actually came out, but because of that, we have quite an extensive history of this fictional character played by Garth Brooks and who the guy is supposed to be. Give you the super brief biography, is that Chris Gaines was born in Australia to two Olympic swimmer parents. When he was 5 years old, he moved to LA. When he was in high school, he started a band with two of his homies. One of them was his road dog #1 ace, Ride or Die Forever. They started a band together. He dropped out of high school to pursue music instead of being an Olympic swimmer. They made a hit, they made it big, then his best friend #1 homie died in a plane crash. Then he was so salted up, he took 2 years off from music until the record label guys came up to him and said, hey, you should do a solo project. And from there, he just went pure Michael Jackson superstar status, #1 album for years and years and years on end, and bing, bang, boom, he's a superstar. And over the 90s, he came out with 4 or 5 albums that all were basically #1. And before his 3rd or 4th album, he got into a brutal car accident, and therefore he had to spend 2 years basically in and out of the hospital getting facial reconstructive surgery on his hands and his face and his shoulder from the car crash. And then when he came out with the album after that, nobody seen a picture of him at all. And then when he came out with the new album, he didn't look like Chris Gaines no more. He happened to actually look a little bit like this dude named Garth Brooks, just with the different hair and the different face hair and the eyeliner and whatever. And Garth Brooks even makes a joke about it when he's unveiling this big thing about, here's the new look of Chris Gaines, this fictional character I'm going to be playing, is that he goes, yeah, he was in a car wreck and he had facial reconstructive surgery, but damn, that must have been some car wreck if he came out looking like me, damn. And throughout the life of Chris Gaines, or his career rather, he came out with all these different albums, and it's all chronicled anthologically in this greatest hits and in the booklet. And throughout the booklet, they actually got the model actor that played like a young Brad Pitt in some other movie to be the pre-car accident Chris Gaines. And that plays more into the joke that I just was mentioning. Well, now, on the verge of coming out with this new movie, Chris Gaines starring in The Lamb, which I already explained. And so, to get hyped, he's putting out his greatest hits along with 2 brand new tracks before the movie's about to come out. So this album, this greatest hits album, has 13 tracks. And it has like 2 or 3 from all of his albums in his discography, and also the 2 new tracks, and also a track which is from the original band that he was in with his dead homie, which I'm going to tell you right now already gets the mark for the worst song on the album. I don't even want to count it, man. I already drive my old Lincoln around in my cassette deck, and I put this on cassette. You know, blank cassettes are kind of valuable. They're rare. They're hard to find. When you get them, you got to snatch them up and save them just for that right moment, that right album that you want to throw on there just so you can rock it all the time in the whip on cassette. okay? This one went on there, but the very last song, that song that's supposed to be his debut track, I skipped it. I took it off. I couldn't do it. I just put one or two of my favorite Garth Brooks greatest hits, whatever space was left at the end of the tape. I'm not going to put the trash. That is the last song on here, which actually isn't even Garth Brooks singing on the song. It's just supposed to be more into the mythology of where they came from. And it doesn't do it for me. I hate the song. I'll talk a little bit more about it when we get there a little bit. But just know that's already off the rip the worst song on the album. So I might have to make like a worst song 0.5 if we're going to just talk about the actual greatest hits of the actual Chris Gaines, the actual Garth Brooks singing on all the songs, because he don't even sing on that song. So let me just be clear about that one. One last note that I want to make about how legit Garth Brooks was being upfront about Chris Gaines being a fictional character, not just losing his mind, because you don't have to take my word for it. Joe Scamato, who wrote this unofficial, unauthorized biography of the king of country pop music, Garth Brooks, in 1999, published this book, which I haven't read. I'm sure it's interesting. Garth Brooks is a cool dude. But anyways, I just want to highlight one part in here. And again, this came out the same year. Let me just read this one paragraph to you to explain how the world should have known that he was a fictional character and not losing his mind. And then one more little point I want to piece out once we get to the actual album here in just a second. But Joe Scamato, she writes, coming in the fall of '99, a pop album, a prequel soundtrack to the film The Land, produced by Don Was, who's better known in the rock world for his work on albums in the Rolling Stones and many others. The album, called Garth Brooks in the Life of Chris Gaines, leads off with both a pop and a country single. The movie's due sometime in the year 2000 is about an overzealous female fan and a superstar musician. Although Garth is starring as the title character in a video of one of the singles, he hasn't decided whether he'll star in the theatrical movie. A movie? A pop album? Why not? What's the point of being one of the biggest entertainers of all time in musical history if you can't try to stretch out in new directions? See, before anything even came out, it was like understood and anticipated. People were stoked. People were hyped. And it's a shame that it didn't get the love it got because it's pretty legit. So, as she mentioned, the single that came out is with two songs, Lost in You and It Don't Matter to the Sun, which, like she said, it's actually an R&B song, Lost in You, and It Don't Matter to the Sun is a country song. It actually just sounds like a Garth Brooks song without the how, but we'll get to that. This came out the same year, and it says right on it, pre-soundtrack to the upcoming feature film The Lamb. CD single from the full length available, blah blah blah. Garth Brooks as Chris Gaines. And right here it says, the characters and incidents portrayed and the names herein are fictitious, and any similarity to names, characters, or history of any person is entirely coincidental and unintentional. That don't sound like somebody just having a mental break to me. Both of these songs are legit. And this is what people could look forward to, right? This came out before the album, and people were able to say, okay, I see what he's doing with like the pop R&B shit. All right, that was a good song. I could dig that. And then the second song on here being a legit country song that people who are Garth Brooks fans could be like, okay, it's not like too crazy off the path. Like, I could probably get behind this. All right, sweet. It's not like dance music or anything. Cool, great. And this was pretty cool that I found this anyways. The two songs that are on here are the album version, by the way. Sometimes you get a single version where it has like a slightly different re-recorded version of it, or like a remix or something like that extra on a single, but these are just directly from the album. Verified that. Pretty cool little find I got. You know, you never know what you're gonna find until you find it in a thrift store. Which, speaking of, Garth Brooks does not like rep Chris Gaines at all. So again, I've said he's done some interviews, and it's usually him speaking pretty negatively on the topic. Even though with the Gaines Fest and everything, he's come around a little bit, where actually he did an interview like a year or two ago, and people mentioned about the anniversary of it and blah blah blah, and how he feels about Chris Gaines. And he says, paraphrasing that, well, the Chris Gaines album was based on a greatest hits of like 4 or 5 albums. And so technically, I could justifiably give you those 4 or 5 albums. You never know. Which, I don't know, that's such a tease and such a stretch. I don't know what he's got going on in his life. Maybe if he does, I'll definitely be peeping it. But Garth Brooks is a very, very shrewd businessman. He still releases CDs to this day, by the way, which are exclusively available at Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's across the country for whatever reason. I guess that's the number one place people who like country music probably shop. Traditionally, you probably would have found it in Walmart or whatever. I don't know if it's an exclusive deal that he has, but that's where every time he comes out with a new album, you can definitely go get it at Cabela's. But also, Garth Brooks is exclusively only available to stream on Amazon Music. Anything that's on YouTube gets like right away. So Garth Brooks was actually ahead of the curve when the digital streaming stuff came out. When Napster and all that came out and like destroyed the music industry forever, making it like unrecognizable, he came out ahead of the game with his own streaming service, which was Ghost Music, I think it was. And so it's similar to Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, Deezer, even, Dr. Dre came out with his own for a while. Different artists have came out with their own for a while. But the Ghost Music was one of the very first ones, and it was pretty much exclusively where you could only stream Garth Brooks' music and a ton of like country music, up and coming, independent, whatever, whoever signed a deal with him. The streaming service didn't last super long time. Eventually they sold it to Amazon Music, I'm sure for a huge profit, and now Amazon Music is the only place where you can stream Garth Brooks music. Period. One album missing from Garth Brooks' discography on his Amazon Prime everything is The Life of Chris Gaines. Now, that lets me know is just that he's not super proud of it. He doesn't want to fully own it. He doesn't want that to be counted in his discography. You can find Chris Gaines on YouTube. You can find a couple Chris Gaines performances, like the one from SNL. You could find the Behind the Music documentary in absolutely terrible VHS quality. I think over on Rumble it's still up. You can find a few Chris Gaines music videos on YouTube, depending on if they take them down or not. Sometimes they're in good quality, sometimes they're pretty pixelated and like VHS trash. But they're up there, and you can check them out on YouTube exclusively, it seems like. But for 2 million copies that were sold, these aren't that hard to find, to be honest. Ever since I heard of Chris Gaines, in my tiny little town in the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, this is actually one of 3 or 4 copies that I've found like out in the wild. And I don't buy every one. Once I bought one, that's my one. But since then, I've seen more of them, and I'll like put them out on the shelf like bink so somebody else can find it. But I even found this just randomly in my town, the single deal. That's pretty cool. So it's out there. If you still listen to CDs, which why wouldn't you? You can find this, and I think it's only like $5 on eBay if you really wanted to get the full experience, because the booklet is half the price right there. There's some pretty cringy pictures of Chris Gaines, which I think Garth Brooks actually lost a lot of weight to portray Chris Gaines, and he's wearing a lot of makeup, a lot of leather, a lot of skin tight clothes, and it's definitely a long departure from Garth Brooks, who, like I said, is kind of a fictional character in himself. But 1999 was kind of a weird time just for pop culture and for music in general. In the 80s, it was all hair metal and everything. It was the birth of hip-hop. In the 90s, hip-hop became more mainstream, became more integrated with pop music and just like top 40 in general. Grunge was taken over from metal and from all that kind of stuff. And so it was this weird time of a big, huge shifts in music culture for sure. And especially towards the end of the 90s, as we're getting close to the new millennium, we had been war-free for pretty much the whole entire 90s. We had been in a great booming economy, and there was a lot of music that was really optimistic. All the boy bands, all the teen girl singers, all the dance music, the Macarena, and all this other stuff. It was very positive. A lot of the Spice Girls type of vibes, just big, bright, happy music. And at the same time, it was kind of a renaissance for a lot of like classic rock to kind of integrate itself back into what now is like alternative rock. Like Matchbox 20, Everclear, a lot of bands like that are kind of, they're heavy, soft rock, I guess, right? They're easy to shop to music. It was this creation of like the really clean, commercialized music in general, sanitized music. So for 6 months in 1998, 1999, they were prepping for this movie and also working on this album. And what I really get the feeling of is that, again, Garth Brooks actually didn't write any of the songs on this album, which is rare for him in his career. But what they did was they looked at whatever was the top 40 songs in all these different genres over the last like 2 years and just picked, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one. Can we kind of recreate our own version of that just so he seems like he's a legit part of like American pop culture music? So what's kind of interesting is that the track list on Chris Gaines' Greatest Hits is actually broken down chronologically. You do have the two that are separate, that are the two new songs that are made just for this Greatest Hits. But beyond that, it starts with his newest songs and goes all the way down to his oldest songs, which is still kind of interesting. And when his debut hit was in 1989, it doesn't sound like it. It all sounds like 1998, 1999. But hey, whatever. It's a fictional universe, and that's fine. This album, I feel like, is also very front-loaded. So if it's supposed to be the newest songs go first, and then the oldest songs as they go, I feel like the quote-unquote older these fictional songs get, the lower quality they get. Or not even lower quality, but just the songs themselves are not as good. Very front-loaded. You can get halfway through, like if this was a vinyl record, right? Like the A side, definitely tracks 1 through 7. You can get through those and be like, dude, this is pretty damn legit. And then you'd flip the vinyl or you flip the cassette or whatever and start track 8 out of 13, with that one, track number 8, being the second new song created just for the Greatest Hits, as the beginning of the decline. The second side is not as good. Not saying it's bad, not as good for sure. And so really interesting project, and I enjoyed the music personally. I came up and found out about this when my wife, who's always asking me to be more open-minded, whether it's about music or movies, and generally I am, but what she means is open-minded towards the things that she likes, which is all good. And so she's like, man, country's not that bad. There's some great country out there. There's some good stuff out there. You're just really closed-minded and you like all this and that and the other kind of music. You'll just never give it a chance. You already decided it sucks before you heard it. And I'm like, all right, well, what? Where should I start? And she's like, you know who's kind of a crossover pop artist? Garth Brooks. You should start with Garth Brooks. Just give him a full try. Just give him a full chance and see what you think about it. So that's when I got that Greatest Hits album, and I actually listened to the whole thing all the way through. And when I got to the end, like I said, I recognized a couple just from my childhood growing up, but when I got to the end, it was like, okay. I definitely get the appeal. I definitely understand why he's so successful, so loved, and everything like that. Not my style, but out of like the 30 songs that are on the greatest hits, sure, there's like 4 or 5 that I wouldn't mind listening to again. Maybe not that I would like immediately go out of my way to like hear again on purpose. A couple of them for sure. But there's definitely a handful of songs that I'm like, okay, I guess you can call me a Garth Brooks fan now. And so just me and my inquisitive mind, every time that I get into something or I find something that I really enjoy or something that sparks me as being just very interesting, I like to dig in and do some research and really just absorb what the vibe is of what I'm looking at. And that sent me down a Garth Brooks rabbit hole, which brought me to Christian Gaines. And yeah, it's Christian, not Christopher. So this album, when it came out in 1999, is the greatest hits of all these different albums. And the newest album that came out, besides this one in 1999, is from 1996 called Triangle. And it was the first time he showed his face since his car accident. The one before that was in 1994, and that was Apostle, which is the one right after his car accident. Before that, it was an album called Fornicopia in 1991, which the album cover is just him looking over a big old pair of titties. And again, it kind of goes back into this image that Chris Gaines is this giant mega rock star, sex addict, blah, 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 blah. I think it's through time is where it's become more comical. But back then, maybe that was just the rock star persona. Before that, his debut album came out in 1989 called Straight Jacket, which he made after his homie died. And his homie was in the band with him called Crush. It was Chris Gaines, his homie Tommy, and their other homie. And when his homie Tommy died in a plane crash after their #1 hit that got him famous, he took some time off before his solo career. So now that you know the kind of the backstory about Garth Brooks and about Chris Gaines and how the two shan't meet and intertwine, now we can get into how was the music? Was it actually worth it? Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? I'm here to recommend to you good music. If I'm going to talk some shit, it's going to be loving shit. And if I'm going to talk trash, I'm going to do that in a different way. These long form videos, it's all love, baby. This is a dope album. So track number 1 on In the Life of Chris Gaines, Garth Brooks as Chris Gaines in Chris Gaines' Greatest Hits, is off of his newest album, which is called That's the Way I Remember It. And this is the kind of song that is the perfect opener because you're still essentially targeting Garth Brooks fans, country fans. And so you need to get them off on the right foot to make them not be scared to run away and think, what the hell is this sold out pop shit? No, you got to come in with something that's still relatively country vibed enough, but still like an acoustic crossover pop alternative rock kind of vibe. It's almost like a John Mayer, like a just like a white guy with an acoustic type of song. And it's a good song, actually. It's a fine song. Whether or not it's because I grew up around a lot of white people that this type of music, like I have a zone in my brain to be able to accept and appreciate. But it's a good song. It's about kind of like the older we get and the more we just like remember our lives and the memories in our lives, the more that they sometimes become like fuzzy and we don't exactly pin perfectly photographic memory wise get every single detail right. But it's all right to choose for each time you do remember those memories, every time you do tell the stories about back in those days, that you can make it even fresher and better and sweeter and nicer and cooler than it actually was, instead of saltier than it actually was. And sometimes we got to be 20 years away from something that happened for us to be able to look at it in a positive way. And so that's just kind of what this song's about. It's a sweet little song. It's just like, I remember it the way I want to remember it, and that's in a positive way. And hopefully, more time will go on and people will feel the same way, including Garth, about this album, because I would love to get some more. Track number 2 is called Lost in You. and it is by far the best song on the album. This song sounds like it was 100% written by Babyface. Again, I mentioned Babyface earlier. He was a huge player in R&B and pop music a lot in the 90s, and there's actually a lot of recorded pictures and facts that Babyface was supposed to be more involved with this project in general. He's actually not credited in the album in the liner notes on any of the songs, but he is thanked in the thank yous, which Garth Brooks is a very flattering thank you for them. And this song definitely sounds like him all over it. It's another acoustic song, but it's not an acoustic alternative pop song. It's an acoustic love R&B soul ballad. And it is a beautiful song. So beautiful, in fact, that Childish Gambino went on this YouTube channel called Like a Version. You may have seen it or heard of it. And he went on there. What all the show is about is famous singers go on there and do cover versions that are also kind of like an MTV Unplugged. They're like the stripped down intimate versions. And it's the kind of songs where they come on there doing the ones you wouldn't expect from them. And for Childish Gambino who with his amazing career that spans throughout R&B and hip hop, to come on and do essentially a Garth Brooks, a Chris Gaines cover, and do it so soulfully and so beautifully, it's really kind of ironic, and we'll come back around to why that is. But he does this cover and he does it well. I'm gonna put the link down in it because it's definitely worth peeping. This song also has a music video, which I'll also put the link down there for, at least while it's still active. Last time I peeped it, it was like a crispy HD version, and it really gives you the most full look of the image of who this Chris Gaines guy is. He's got the eyeliner, the hair over his face, the all black suit, barefooted in like a train station or something. I don't know what really is going on, but it's a beautiful song. It's a wonderful song. It's a fantastic song. And for me, when I heard this song, it let me like glued to the speakers, like I'm ready to go on this full ride after this. This is what you're able to do. This is what it sounds like when you fully drop the country twang and flex your falsetto, when you can show that you can sing actual R&B music. This song has some nice little runs and little vocal accents, and it's definitely a full-on R&B song. Garth Brooks also has like 15 different greatest hits where they're like a full box set of like every album, including the new one, and then also including some kind of bonus disc. A lot of times they'll come with like a live set album, and sometimes they come with cover albums where it's like his top 10 favorite like hard rock songs and he covers them. And he also did a one where it's like all his favorite soul and R&B songs where he covers like Sam and Dave, like Temptation, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye. Like, I haven't heard it, but I'm like on the hunt for it because that would be interesting to hear, because it's, again, I come back to how Garth Brooks is probably almost just as much of a fictional character as Chris Gaines is, because the way how convincing he is still as a talented vocalist singer without the country twang, he's really selling it, and I'm buying it. And as a fun fact, this is the only song in Garth Brooks' entire career and discography that ever did do a crossover into the Billboard Top Hot 200 as number 5. And this is the only time he's ever been on that list at all, and he got in the top 5. Pretty awesome. That's a pretty big accomplishment. And if anything, that should have let you know that it's okay, that you're on the right track, that people are appreciating it, people are digging it, and you're able to flex your chops that people who traditionally listen to country might not be interested in knowing that talent that you have. They just want to hear how mama loved daddy and mama loved man. And that's one thing too. There's one or two other songs on here that sound like country that, like, if you just changed it from an acoustic to like a steel guitar and maybe changed it from like a keyboard into an actual fiddle, these were just as perfectly would have been Garth Brooks songs. You just tweak these like couple little things, add back in a twang, and like they're full on Garth Brooks songs. But this one, not even close. Garth who? Chris Gaines. Track number 3 is called Snow in July and is my favorite song on the album. This is the kind of song that's like a arena anthem. Like, this is the song where everybody in attendance at the concert is belting out at the top of their lungs. And I do in my old Lincoln driving down the highway my damn self. I don't think you understand. I actually listen to this album a lot. Like, I listen to all the albums that I'm going to review on this channel, like, quite a bit, just so I can get a fully formed opinion on everything and, like, really dig deep into the intricacies of how I'm feeling about something. But this one, like, I've known I want to do this video for months. This is actually the second time I've recorded this video, and something malfunctioned with my microphone, so I got a whole new setup for that, but to where it recorded it all in mute. So, I'm doing it again. But, since that time, I've listened to this album probably 20, 30, 40, 50 times out of just the pure enjoyment of it. And this song, like I was saying, number 3, Snow in July, is part of that front-loaded situation that we have. And this, to me, already at track 3, like, absolutely peaked. And even though it's not on a steep decline from here, it never hits this. And this is a big, belting anthem of a song that's also about heartbreak, though. This, in 1999, was the time that we saw the resurgence of Santana. Santana came out with his epic, amazing, record-blowing album, Supernatural. And every song on that album had like a different feature on it. We all know Rob Thomas' Matchbox 20 was "'Cause you're so smooth." And the other guy had the Maria, Maria. And then the other guy, Everlast, not to be confused with Everclear, but from the House of Pain, came out with the Leave It That Song. And on and on and on. The album was just like mad hits with like mad features and off the hook. And it really changed the pop scene to where it wasn't so much like deeply Spanish influenced, as Santana was one of the only ones, like even since the 70s, that really break through, like really in the mainstream with that full Spanish sound. But it had that too, but it was focused on bringing it to the pop world, and that album blew the world away. And I feel like this album, or this song rather, Snow in July, is definitely influenced by that album. It's just like big and bright and like just goes for it. Also, as a side note, before I get into how fresh this song is, I keep having the thought, and I will return to it as we go along, but that most of the songs on this album really could have benefited from a feature, because as I mentioned earlier, it sounds like they just looked at the top 40 tracks for the last like couple years, tried to find what they thought they could nail and what was the best like avenue to say, hey, let's try to make kind of our own version of this song, of this song, of this song. And this song is kind of almost more like the Rob Thomas Smooth one from Santana. But if they were really trying to sell this Chris Gaines gimmick, how fresh would that be to do like a Supernatural style album where they have all these different features, especially if so many of the songs sound like so many of these other artists. It really could have benefited and putting Chris Gaines into the zeitgeist that you're trying to build of him as this character in the movie that's going to come out. And you already got the support of Babyface and Don Was and all these amazing, very well accredited music producers and engineers and everybody that's working on the album. How much crazier would it have been for you to get these extra features on these songs that sound like these other artists anyways? Or what if you got Chris Gaines featuring on all these tracks of all these other artists and then putting all those songs onto a compilation of greatest hits? That to me was a big missed opportunity and really could have made this whole thing more legit and work and justified in the way that it's almost like not quite like plagiarizing or covering, but just so heavily influenced by the pop music at that time individually on each song that I feel like it's a missed opportunity. Especially on this song, Snow in July. It has a big guitar solo, and it could have been Santana's, damn it. But anyways, this song is about using the metaphor of a shift in weather, snow in July, for example, when you're in a relationship and you think that everything's going all good, and all of a sudden she turns cold and she's out of there, and you're like, what the hell happened? I thought everything was cool, baby. And it's like, caught me by surprise. He really flexes his runs on this, man. I love this song, and it's super solid. I didn't even talk about what the last song was about. Just go watch the video, mother sucker. Track number 4 is a track called Drifting Away. It goes and nobody knows what it's gonna do. And this is the song that should have been featuring Boyz II Men. It might even be actually Boyz II Men singing the background harmonies. I'm not sure. They're not credited, but it sounds like a Boyz II Men song. And this one, again, is not like a super far stretch from Garth Brooks' wheelhouse. It's like a really slow, acoustic R&B song. Well, it sounds like a country song, but enough of the stuff is switched around, whether it's the melodies or whatever it is, the drum sounds even, that make it into an R&B song. And it also definitely sounds something like Babyface would have wrote. But what's messed up is it's a pretty song, but it's actually kind of salty as hell. I've talked about this where you can have the vibe of a song be one thing, but the actual content of the lyrics seem like totally opposite. And this song is about, girl, I love you and I never want to lose you, but I get bored really easy, and so I'm probably going to keep cheating on you. And I'd understand it if you want to leave me, but that's the last thing I ever want to happen. So please don't do it. Please keep forgiving me, but I'm going to be an asshole anyways. And so the title of Drift Away means that I want to hold you close and be your man and love you, but I just feel like a dick knowing that you're going to eventually see me drift away and bang another hoe, 'cause that's what I do. And I guess that's part of the Chris Gaines vibe, is that he's the sex addict with all these terrible bad relationships. And speaking of, actually, within the booklet, there's actually a bunch of scribble scrabble, which I guess is supposed to be Chris Gaines' handwriting, where he talks about kind of the meaning of each song and what they're supposed to mean to him and where he got the idea from it. And it basically just talks about, on this song especially, is that he was in a perfect relationship, but she was too good for him, so he had to just take his leather jacket and his guitar and leave one morning and never talk to her again, because he knows that he can never be a good enough man for how good of a woman she is. Again, not a bad song, and still leaning a little more country, just with the pop R&B vibes. Hopefully this is the kind of song Chris Gaines' Garth Brooks' like A&R team and marketing development promo people are thinking, okay, we're still in the pocket enough to not scare away the country fans. We could still guarantee to sell at least a certain amount of copies as long as we don't go way too far off the scale. This is still right in that pocket. Drifting Away, as I mentioned though too, does sound like Babyface would have wrote it. But if you're a big Michael fan like me, you will definitely hear the song Stranger in Moscow all over this song. Listen for that. Track number 5 is called It's Just the Way of the Girl, Just the Way of the Girl, bing, 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 bing. And this should have been the perfect opportunity for him to do a collaboration with Lenny Kravitz, because again, there's a great guitar solo on here. It should have been Lenny, but also it definitely sounds like he's just trying to do a Lenny Kravitz style song. So this song is very much like a upbeat, like a rock pop type of song. And it's about essentially how he has a good girl, but even though she is a good girl, she's still a girl, so she's still confusing, and she's still gonna play some games, and she might be in it for the right reasons, but I can't get myself up to the perfect place where I need to be to feel like I'm fully keeping her all the way locked down and satisfied. And so he even talks about in the little notes about how when he wrote the song there's a lyric, he goes, you'd change anything to give to her, but she'll keep changing her mind about what she wants. Paraphrasing kind of thing. But it's a fine song. Again, it just sounds like a missed opportunity. If you had the endorsement from Lenny Kravitz, this could have been another hit song, especially for 1999. Not my favorite song, a little bit corny, a little bit, but at what point is it, are you writing songs for the sake of wanting to say something, or are you writing songs to fill out this greatest hits for Chris Gaines? We're still, starting to kind of creep more down towards that middle spot before it kind of takes a lot sharper turn. But again, for me, tracks 1 through 4 are, and then here we keep going. So track number 6 is called Unsigned Letter. And there's 3 really interesting aspects to this. First, right when you hear it, you feel like, huh? Is this a remix of the Wallflowers One Headlight song? Which is an awesome song. And again, there's that soft spot of me growing up in the 90s, winning where I did, where I can hear these like alternative rock type of poppy songs that'll always have that soft spot for me. But you wouldn't be wrong for thinking that it sounds super similar to that hit album, because the same exact organ player and the same exact physical organ itself, from what I hear, were used on this song. Very much is almost like a ripoff of the Wallflowers. So again, what another missed opportunity. Okay, you got the organ player, but what if the lead singer came in with this gravelly voice to add a little extra something, endorsement stamp of legit pop music entwined? Missed the opportunity. This is a really interesting song though. So in the fictional Chris Gaines notes of it all, this song is about when he got in his really bad car accident and he was in the hospital. He had his jaw wired shut for 6 weeks, and the only person that he had really interactions with, because he was like, embarrassed and blah blah blah, paparazzi probably, whatever, was this nurse. But he had his jaw wired shut, so he couldn't really actually have the conversations with her. So they would write notes to each other. And he said how she was like a really simple, plain Jane town kind of girl, didn't have any real crazy aspirations. She just basically worked at the hospital and that was her main thing. But she became friends with him through writing letters back and forth. And after he left the hospital, he says that he stays friends with her, and he always thinks about what if she got that one opportunity to like break free of this just like cookie cutter life that's been made for her. And that's kind of what the point of the song is that he's like sending her on like a scavenger hunt, like a mystery adventure. Like, what if Chris Gaines sent this nurse this letter saying, come to me, to let everything in your nursing job and everything behind and just come be with me, girl, and go on this crazy rock star adventure life with me. And it's him proposing what might happen and how her perspective might be if she got that letter. But if you listen to it a little bit closer, even though Garth Brooks didn't write this song or any of these songs, it actually sounds really meta. And don't forget, Scream came out in 1996, so that meta was starting to become a lot more of like a part of pop culture in the late 90s. And there very much could be like, subliminal messages, maybe not subliminal messages, more than like double meanings, like between the lines kind of stuff as a reflection about what is actually going on in reality. And because my thought process is that this song is actually about Garth Brooks himself. So the song goes through talking about how You can take what you know and what you have and what everything that's working, and that's fine. But what if you took that gamble, you took that chance, you opened Pandora's box into a whole new world of opportunities, even though it might blow up in your face and it might be the most embarrassing thing you ever do? Won't you regret not taking that chance? Isn't it something so special and worth doing? And I think that that's him actually trying to convince himself to go forward with this Chris Gaines project at all. And so you go back and you peep the song and you listen to the lyrics and see if I'm tripping, if that makes sense, that that could be what's going on here on this track, Unsigned Letter. So track number 7 is called It Don't Matter to the Sun. And this is where we come back to why the Childish Gambino cover of the first song is such a cool irony. This song is a cover song that's written by a fictional person in a fictional world. It's actually a fictional song. And so what's funny is that Chris Gaines, a fictional character, covering the song of a fictional character that never existed, and then Childish Gambino covering a song of a fictional character that never existed. It all is up there somewhere. And so anyways, this song is like the perfect country love ballad. In the fake story of it, it's supposedly the song that his daddy used to sing to his mama, and then when his daddy died, she couldn't have nobody to sing it to her no more, so he sang it and made it for his mama. Oh, you gotta love your mama. And it's actually a really, really good song. Like, I feel like this is a straight up country song, to be honest. Again, if you traded the acoustic guitar for a steel guitar and instead of the piano put a fiddle in it, it would be just a full on Garth Brooks song. He's even kind of fighting the Oklahoma twang. Like, it's almost there. This is definitely a country song. And this is the other song that was featured on the single. And I think it did pretty well on the country hits as well. And people might have heard that song and been like, shit, it can't be that different. I'll go pick it up. It sold 2 million copies. And I'm assuming most of those were Garth Brooks fans. But this is a really good song, and I gotta say, I don't fuck with country at all. Like, only time I ever listen to country intentionally is if I'm drunk and it's like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm feeling all rah-rah patriotic. I'll put on like old patriotic America country songs. And other than that, I don't fuck with it. I fuck with a couple Garth Brooks songs, including this one right here. This song is really legit. I love like just the story, the vibe, the metaphors, the words that they use, and where it don't matter to the sun if you're breaking up with me, but my world will be fucked. And it don't matter to the moon if you break up with me. It's gonna keep doing what it do, but my world's gonna be fucked. And so all these other external things in the world that are not gonna stop for a single instant, no matter what you do, it's all gonna be a big deal to me. 'Cause it sure do matter to me. Garth Brooks really does have a fantastic voice. I feel like on some of the songs, he's pushing out some runs. He's pushing out some good vocal extensions. He still feels a little guarded, a little tapered. He's not letting it go like full blast like a super full-on R&B singer would. And, you know, maybe that's his range. Again, I've listened to Garth Brooks' greatest hits, but not enough to be able to analyze, you know, his vocal range necessarily like that. But he does show off his chops. That even without the twang, he has a great voice. This song is a great representation of that. And this song marks about the halfway point, which is about where the decline's gonna come in. Doesn't mean all the songs after this are bad. They're just nowhere near as good as the first half. So if you want to peep this for the first time, you really want to get your head around some interesting music that you never heard before, that you might not have even knew about, that you might not have ever gave a chance otherwise, get through track 7, and then if you fall off and you're like, all right, that's enough for me, hey, I understand it and that's fine. But this is where the track the cassette tape in my Lincoln flips over. We get to side B, and it's just not as exciting and fun. But we're going to get down to track number 8. And boy, track number 8 is a doozy. So track number 8 is called Right Now. It is the other song that is supposedly a new song made just for this greatest hits compilation here. And there is also a grainy VHS low quality music video for it on YouTube. If it still exists, I'll put it down there for you. It's very much like the Y2K end of the world type of vibe. Like maybe Garth Brooks thought that, hey, if the world ends in Y2K and everybody hates this album, at least nobody be around to remember it. Luckily, Y2K didn't matter, and we're all still here and being able to talk about it in YouTube land and let you know what's up. So this song, I would qualify it and say it is a rap song. This is Garth Brooks doing a rap song. And the hook is like one of the strangest and worst decisions I've ever heard on the structuring of a song in my life. So it's this like industrial, almost like not quite Nine Inch Nails, like if it was like a pop version of a Nine Inch Nails. And then the chorus is just a sample of the 60s hippie love anthem. Come on, people now. Go in the bed down, bend it down, down. We can live right now. And then it goes right back to the where he does a rap song. Basically, the rap verses are essentially like lists of him trying to think of what possible reasons could it be that our society is in such decline. What possible explanation could we give to it feeling like it's about to be the end of the world? What possible reason could there be for why the world sucks now? And his explanations range from everything from school shooters to single mothers to gangbangers to illegal aliens to, everything in between. Religious priests and, sports. Sports are apparently a reason why. So it's basically just a list of things that rhyme. Maybe it's the this, and maybe it's the that. Maybe it's the this with the this, that. And maybe it's the that with the this and the this. Or maybe it's this, but we'll never know. So come on to the hippie song. And it's like such a jarring contrast of styles and vibes and the sounds of the song that it doesn't make sense to me at all, especially since he's saying everything sucks, everything's fucked, to hey everybody, if we just love each other everything will be great, yeah. And it's like, I don't know who approved that, but they should never have got that sample cleared. What they should have did is have some like actual rapper feature on this song, like I don't know, like Michael Jackson was getting all sorts of Biggie Smalls features even after he died, but you could have got somebody that was like hot at the time, like some kind of crossover pop rapper that could have came on, and then like maybe him be the one to spin it into a positive direction at the end, like 2 verses of Chris Gaines saying this is shit, it all sucks, what the fuck is the problem, and then the third guy coming on and be like, yeah, or on the third verse have the second guy rapper come on and be like, yeah, I hear that it's this and I hear that it's that, but what about the other positive things like this? And like could have tied it all together and then had this big positive crescendo at the end, not this back and forth, negative, positive, industrial, classic rock, and it is a trip to listen to, and it's worth hearing just to hear Garth Brooks rap, I guess. And the video is this weird, like, it's this like dreary industrial like Times Square video of like Y2K and like riots in the world burning down, and everybody's like, wah! And it's one of a kind song for sure. Like you could try to think like, what does this song remind me of, like, other than the obvious sample that the hook rips off? And I just can't put my finger on, especially like 1999, like what the hell was like the vibe for this? Like if every song is essentially like just a borrowing of a style, a borrowing of the vibe based on the top 40 hit. Like, where did this one come from? I'll never understand. Track number 9 is a track called Main Street. And it's just kind of almost like the precursor for the very much like country pop style that you have now. Maybe like, and I'm not well versed enough, so if I'm not getting this correct, let me know in the comments. But almost like a Keith Urban, like a Chris Stapleton almost kind of vibe, where it's almost like corny positive, like country rock, like a Taylor Swift, I guess, too. She's like way more pop. She started off country from what I understand, but anyways, it's very much just a song about, you know, you're from a small town and all your dreams seem like impossible to reach because you're trapped in this small town, and you feel like maybe if you leave you can never come back. In the little fictional notes, Chris Gaines scribbles his chicken scratch about how it's a homie who he grew up with in his small town, who always had a plan and always talked all this shit about how he was going to get out. And then after he was a super mega famous star, he came back and seen his homie who never left, and he asked him why, and he said, because I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I made it out and left everything behind and then didn't become successful. I wouldn't be able to show my face. And so that's kind of the idea, but in the song too, it's about how kind of just like that fear, that insecurity. And now everybody's telling him, just go for it, bro. And this is kind of another one of those meta ones where this is kind of the story of Garth Brooks himself, because growing up, he in his small Oklahoma town, he basically like put his whole life and everything to the side and moved to Nashville to try to make it as a country singer. And then when he failed, he did move back to his hometown, went there for like a year. He had a band, he was still trying to work something out, and then eventually like a year or two later moved back to Nashville again, and this time actually was able to do it. But I bet even though he didn't write the song, there's a lot in there that he's directly relating to himself, that he can use Chris Gaines as like the vessel of which to tell that story of the insecurity of him initially trying to venture out and do something. And again, even as a double metaphor about Chris Gaines at all, like if I get out of my little country bubble, will I ever actually be able to be accepted back fully if this Chris Gaines thing fails? And so kind of some interesting psychology in there. Maybe I'm just the guy who listens to it way too deeply, or maybe these are the kind of things why you listen to me talking all this shit, is because I might bring you an interesting and unique perspective that you don't hear before. If you're really interested in Chris Gaines, I'll also put a link. There's going to be a whole chunk of them, of a really good podcast series that came out called the Chris Gaines Project, where these folks do, it's like a 4-parter where they really break down like every bit of it. I'm kind of just giving you my general synopsis of the whole situation and scenario and entanglements that ensued during this time. But if you really want a deep dive, it's an interesting listen to go check down that. I'll put episode 1 and you can keep following that rabbit hole if you want. One last side note on this song is this song was the one that I mentioned earlier was co-written by Trisha Yearwood. I might have said Carrie Underwood before, but I don't really care to know the difference really. But Trisha Yearwood co-wrote this song, who she's a famous country singer, and ended up becoming his wife. He was married to a different wife when he was making this album, then basically during the fallout of the album got divorced, and then I don't know how much longer married the Trisha Yearwood chick, and they've been together ever since. And let me just say, and I'll leave it at that, that it seems like Garth Brooks is like a total simp to the fullest, but also kind of a cold-hearted mug, as far as like he won't let nothing get in the way of his success and what he's trying to do, but also he is still a simp at the same time. But nothing really nothing really special about this song. It's, again, sounds very much like a country song, but just you remove those steel guitars, you remove those fiddles, and you just are able to make it like Everclear, right? That keeps coming up because it definitely is that vibe, that just that Matchbox 20, just that white guy with the guitar with like a positive upbeat pop vibe behind it. And that's Main Street. Track number 10 is called Digging for Gold. And it's about what exactly you think it is. It's about gold diggers. And so, as I mentioned earlier, as the track listing progresses, the chronological order of which these descends. The songs get older as they go along, deeper into his discography. So this song, you could definitely tell that he's trying to sound like young as he possibly can. And maybe this one has a little bit more of like an early 90s vibe to it. But the song is weird. So if it's supposed to be written by like a 20-year-old, it's telling a story about like a 50-year-old guy. And so this song definitely has like a Michael Jackson type of vibe. Like especially a lot of his maybe unreleased but songs like Do You Know Where Your Children Are? Where it's like a tragic story about somebody, but told in like a heavy, hearty type of way. And just the vibe of the song really reminds me like it would be like a Michael Jackson song. And anyways, the song is about some old, I don't know if he's fat, it doesn't specifically say, but in my mind, like a gray-haired old fat guy, rich as hell, who he meets this hot little like 20-year-old thing, and they become in a relationship together, and then over the course of that relationship, she's like cold and distant the whole time, but he's like simping and obsessed with her, and then all of a sudden, a recession hits, and he loses all his money in the stock market or whatever, and he's broke, and he goes, well, hey baby, I'm broke, but it's okay, because we got love, right? You love me, you're not just here for the money, right? And before he could even finish telling her about how he loves her and they're broke, she's already out the door pawning that engagement ring. Adios, sucker. So that's like a tale as old as time. And in his little scribblings, he talks about how it's based on like an old black and white movie where the main character asks the main chick, hey, do you really love me, baby? Or are you just digging for gold? And he goes, and that's a whole song. But I mean, it's cliche, it's classic, but it's just like almost from the old dude's perspective of how like he's just naive to think that some old rich fat cat old dude is gonna hook up with this like 20-year-old supermodel type of chick, and that once everything dries up, at least I got you, baby. And it's kind of also more like the Lenny Kravitz style, to where it's like definitely got more like a rock vibe to it. Still sounds like a rock song written by a country guy though, but he's trying to sound younger, and this goes way back in the discography. And again, not a bad song, it's a pretty catchy song actually. It's like do you love me, baby? Do you want me to hold it down? Dig it for gold. Down. Again, one thing you can give all these songs is that they're all very well made, for sure. And I mixed those up. That was actually track number 11. So, track number 10 is actually called White Flag. And this song sounds, again, for sure, like maybe it could have been like a feature with like Lenny Kravitz or even like a Hall & Oates, where it's very much like a sanitized pop song. And this song is about toxic relationships, about kind of how the high highs and the low lows of when your sexual chemistry is just like the only super intense thing that's keeping your relationship together. And so when it's good, it seems like heaven, but since you pretty much don't have any other chemistry beyond sexual, it's always going to be toxic and fighting and hitting a wall and never being able to just be chill and calm and peaceful. I know I've been there. And that's why I used to say a phrase, the hotter they are, the crazier they are. And let me know if you've had that experience. But this song is basically about that. And it's a lot about how, like, no matter what he does, she's always going to have a problem. No matter how hard he tries, it's never going to be good enough. No matter how much effort he puts in, she's never going to meet him halfway. They're always just going to be in conflict all the time. So you can interpret this two ways too, as you can either say, Signing up the white flag, sending up, sending up, sending up the white flag. Is it him surrendering to the relationship, like he's giving up, he's done, he's out, he can't take it anymore, surrender, war's over? Or is he saying, surrender, war's over, I will simp and submit to doing whatever you want to do just so we can avoid the drama? Not really super clear in the song. You listen to it and tell me what you got out of it. So that was actually track number 10. Track number 12 is a song called Maybe. And this I would have to say is my worst song 1.5. I'm going to get slightly into the actual worst song. I kind of mentioned it at the beginning. But this one is also very much sounds like a Beatles song. And he even mentions in his scribbles that it was intentionally supposed to sound like a Beatles song, because even though this song sounds like a heartbreak, broken up, trying to get over it and pull yourself up type of song, he talks about how it's actually a song about how when somebody dies. So this is supposedly the song that he wrote when his homie, who he first blew up with, died, that maybe I'm better on my own, maybe I'm strongest alone, maybe my best days are still ahead of me, like I might feel like I'm devastated and the world's over, but maybe actually this is going to be the best thing that's going to propel me to be the next better person that I should be, that I want to be, that I can be, and only I'm going to be able to determine that by how I choose to go looking forward. And so what's interesting is that you never really get that clarification through the lyrics about that it's about a dead homie. Until you read the scribblings. It definitely sounds like a heartbreak song, and when you listen to it as a heartbreak song, like a romantic heartbreak, it doesn't actually make sense, because it's going back and forth about how you're the most important thing to me that I know I'll never stop missing and never getting over, but actually maybe this is an awesome thing. I wouldn't really, maybe it takes a certain amount of time to feel that losing somebody and having your heart blasted in a million pieces can be a good thing. And I don't know, I've had my own personal experience where I've lost friends in a tragic way before, and how devastating that is, and I never really felt at any time that was a positive thing. I definitely wouldn't be the same person I was had I been kept that friendship up until this point my whole life, or if I would have even. But at the time when my best friend died, for example, I felt like it was the end of the world. I had to honor him in all things and everything I ever did, especially we were musician partners together, similar to the way that Chris Gaines and his homie is, and similar to the way Chris Gaines and his homie who dies is when they were 19, 20, and his homie was black. And so I can relate to this fictional Chris Gaines quite a bit on some of these point styles of his timeline of his life. But I never once thought that losing my best friend tragically ever became a positive thing, but it definitely shaped me in a way that I probably never would have ever even got to, conclusions I never would have arrived to, had I not been forced to face certain things on my own, had I been denied the confidence and the camaraderie of my boy that I lost through just life and growth and different things that go on in life. Sometimes, who knows if he was still alive at this point, 16, 17 years later, if I would have even still be his homie at all. Life would be so much different, and maybe I'm strongest alone, maybe I'm better off on my own, I don't know. And so I really dig the message and the vibe, the lyrics, the message of the song, but I'm not a fan of the Beatles. They just don't do it for me. I'm Michael to the core, and I'm just really selective and picky about all my music that I like outside of R&B, funk, and soul. Everything that I like outside of that, I'm really picky and eclectic, and the Beatles just don't do it for me. And so this is intentionally supposed to be a piano ballad with a weird clarinet type thing solo going on, and it's very much trying to just be Paul McCartney. And anyways, in the scribblings he talks about how he did that on purpose because his homie was the number one Beatles fan or whatever. Maybe Worst Song Part 5, not a terrible song, but it definitely doesn't fit the vibe of any of the other tracks on this song, or on the album. And again, this is supposed to be like his first hit that he came out with as a solo artist after his homie died that he blew up with as the band. And so it's supposed to be a young, inexperienced, like late 80s, early 90s version of him, I guess, but that's maybe just the clever way to spin it. Maybe they looked at all these tracks and was like, these don't feel like a consistent album. These don't feel like they're all cohesive into one unit. I know, what if it's the greatest hits and we say it's from all these different years along, and we could say whatever ones sound like this one are just the older songs or the era songs. Or maybe we could say the songs that are shittier are the older songs, and then the newer, as we go into the timeline, they get better and better. But then let's flip it and make the newest ones go first, blah blah, and so it's top heavy. But I guess that's opposite actually of how it would be done, because normally if you get somebody's greatest hits, it usually follows the progression of the timeline chronologically as it was. Like when you put in the greatest hits, you push track 1, it was their first hit, you know what I'm saying? They did the opposite on this, and it's all the tactics that go into A&R and production, and all the people that had to come together to make this a product worth selling. I feel like they nailed it. Like, maybe I'm looking, a little too far behind the curtain to like try to dissect and see the way that the A&R worked and the way they came up with it and the thought process that went into the way that this was all packaged and put together. But that's what's interesting to me about a lot of this stuff. Hopefully that's why it's interesting to you and you're peeping me out. If you're still with me, I appreciate it. Got a few more thoughts on the legendary Chris Gaines. So the last song on the album, track number 13 is... Track number 13 is My Love Tells Me So. And I don't know how they were supposed to be this like Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses type of like rock band when this just sounds like a corny ass like mid 60s like and it's like this came out in 89 and it was a hit. What the hell? And so anyways, it's not even Chris Gaines singing on it. It's somebody else that's supposed to be singing as his dead homie. And in the little scribbles, they talk about how this was actually the original demo version that got us signed, that it was so perfect that we just left it on the album the same way instead of redoing it in a big time studio. And, kiss my ass, man. This song is whack. It's made by almost all the same people that made all the other songs, which are all highly accredited, very talented people, and they just had to come up with this idea. Okay, we made it like this, now we gotta have a Crush song in there. And they didn't want to just go like hair metal or whatever. They had to go like full bubblegum popcorn, like Motowny Beatles type of vibe, and it doesn't work for me. When I put this on cassette, I left this one off and put the Rodeo song and the Friends in Low Places song, and that filled out the rest of the cassette, and that worked for me. Fuck that song. But anyways, that is the life of Chris Gaines. If you got your intrigue, don't forget to peep the links of all the other stuff that I put down in the description for you to continue down the Chris Gaines rabbit hole. If you like good music, keep on tuned to this channel, like it, and do all the stuff that YouTube wants you to do so you can keep seeing more of this and other people can too. Appreciate you joining me on this journey through an obscure 1999 weird offshoot of a weird situation. Hopefully I cleared up all the rumors, and so the next time that somebody says to you, hey, you remember that time Garth Brooks lost his mind, you could be like, well, actually, that ain't what was at all, fool. You got it wrong. And I'm gonna send you my boy Ninja Black, that Ninja Black, and he gonna tell you about what really went down. And you could be educated yourself. Check it out, peep me out, come on back, and let's do it again sometime, because next time we're gonna talk about some more stuff, but you have to wait to find out what.
It's Ninja Black. It's a shame, no love for Chris Gaines. He was original, individual. You're more than a little special, one of a kind, stays on the mind of Ninja Black. Let's talk that smack. Break down the tracks and facts with Ninja Black. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ninja Black. Ninja Black. Ninja Black. Ninja Black.